welcome to Lyra, and I'm Sean Beckett, and I'm here to give you practical advice during your spiritual awakening and also give you some advice on your starseed origins. And in this video I'm going to talk to you about whether or not you are a Draconian or a Orion starseed. And first of all, I'm going to do a little bit of explanation as to what a starseed is. Now, there are actually entities within planet Earth that are reptilian, that are from the constellation of Orion's belt, and there's a big star called, well, it's called Draco, and they're actually among us. They call them the shapeshifters, which means that they can disguise themselves as human beings. However, they are actually entities that are existing in the Orion's belt currently and that are now in our reality. However, a Draconian starseed is a completely different thing. So starseed is pretty much the first humans that were humans as we know it, that are the intelligent version of the prehistoric humans, were bred with entities from other planets, which means that their brain expanded more than could be if it was done via evolution. Now, each of these entities sort of came to different parts of the planet and bred with each of the humans as they were at the time to make a new race, which is our current humanity. So a starseed is, if you think about the various different entities coming down to Earth to breed with us, there is a bloodline, the same as there's a bloodline in your family. And a starseed is pretty much a bloodline of a direct descendant of one of the entities from other planets. However, you're not actually an alien. So you're human with a bloodline that goes back thousands and millions of years back to when we were first bred with the entities from another planet. So with that in mind, there's a lot of there's a lot of hearsay that certain people in positions of power are reptilians. Now, I wouldn't want to comment on who is who because we don't know, so it's just speculation. And I would be very careful in pointing fingers at people and saying you're a Draconian or you're not, because it doesn't necessarily mean that that's a bad thing anyway. But with regards to whether or not you're a Draconian starseed, this just means that you have had an incarnation on Orion's belt and maybe you're predominantly Draconian soul. Your soul is predominantly Draconian. It's a little bit confusing, but it means that you've probably incarnated into a family that's got a bloodline of reptilians going back millions of years. So you may find that you've got, I'm not saying that all of you, because I have a lot of comments saying, well, I haven't got red hair, or, because I've talked about Lyrans before. If you're a reptilian or a Draconian starseed, it means that your soul origin is mainly consisting of being on Orion's belt or Draco or Draco, and you're a Draconian soul, and that's where you've probably incarnated into a bloodline that is Draconian. Now, what this means as a human, you can sometimes have a feeling of being a little bit different from everybody else, and I will give some physical appearances, although this doesn't mean anything because you can choose to incarnate into any family or any human body that you like. But I have a lot of Draconian starseeds will find that they have quite a low blood pressure, and they have they find that the difference in temperature can be quite horrible for them. So they'll feel like extremely cold or extremely hot. Their pet preferences, they say that Lyrans prefer cats, but this is just something that you might find if you're wondering what origin you are from, or what star seed you think you might be, and You will have quite a dark appearance. You might like to have loads of tattoos and dark hair, dark eyes. This is just, as I say, you can incarnate into any body that you like. But this is just some of the things that you might find you've got if you are a Draconian. You have like a Scorpio type appearance and quite a, you like to look into the darker aspects of life. You might have you might struggle with addictions, with drugs or things like that. You won't realize it, but you are very, very powerful manifestors. So you need to be careful and look at the moon cycles and when it's best for you to make your wishes and write down a law of attraction list, because you will be very, very good at this. They say that Draconian starseeds it would be easy for them to be in the public eye because they can manifest the dreams that they desire quite easily. But in appearance, you may seem sort of quite Scorpio-like in your appearance if you know much about astrology, where you'll have sort of dark hair, maybe tattoos. I would say normally quite thin, but I mean, like I said, you can be in any human body that you decide to incarnate, and so it's the physical appearances aren't necessarily relevant. They have actually found that some people have a heart that's got I can't quite understand, it's sort of a reptilian heart. They've found that they've done heart surgery on someone and their heart is the same as a reptile, so that might be something. But like I said, your blood would be quite, you'll have quite low blood pressure. You'll sort of want to look into the darker aspects of life. You might have to go through life, it might be quite difficult because you might have some karmic debts that you need to pay off. So you might find that you struggle at the beginning of your life. All these things are a Draconian starseed. Now, this is just your soul origin is from a different planet. You're not a entity from another planet. You are incarnated in a human form. So just be careful with that, because you might think that there's a lot of bad press, and I don't think there should be, because everything happens for a reason. And there are people here that are in a bloodline. They do say that the royal family may be reptilian bloodline, but are they actually reptilians? Are they actually entities from another planet on Earth at the moment? I don't know. Is it their fault that their bloodline is from Draco? No, because they didn't have a choice about it thousands and thousands of years ago, or millions of years ago. So this is where you need to sort of think to yourself, I'm trying to think of any other, so your preference for pets would probably be reptiles. You'd probably like not be scared of them. So you'd like to have a snake or, a tortoise or some other reptilian as your pet, where other people would look at it and go, well, that's not a very cuddly pet. You would love them. So another thing to think of is when you're talking about Draconian starseeds and reptilian entities, this is not soul starseed origin. This is what I'm talking about, the actual entities that are still on the Orion's belt. The way they are brought up by their family is very different, the same as a reptile is on planet Earth, because every single animal on planet Earth has been created in their likeness. So this is where the God thing comes in. They say, oh, we've all been created in their likeness. Yes, things like cats have been created by the Lyrans, and a crocodile has been created by the reptilians. That is how they've created something that looks similar to them. So you've got two different ways of behaviour if you look at the animals. So you've got a cat who has its kittens and looks after them until they're able to fend for themselves. And you've got a reptilian who has a bunch of eggs and they all hatch, and hopefully they have to make it on their own. And that's very similar to how a Draconian entity has to survive on their own planet. Their parents don't look after them like we do, nurture them until they're able to look after themselves. They pretty much have eggs and they hatch and they have to get on with it. So how would you feel as an animal that has to fend for themselves? Would you be very loving towards another entity or humans or anything in general, because you've had to fend for yourself? So you've had to become hardened to life because you know that you're on your own. This is something to consider when you consider whether or not an entity is a good or a bad entity. And there are Draconians that have ascended to higher levels of consciousness because they have learned all the valuable lessons that they needed to as a soul, as a being. So there's no good, well, there is good and bad in everything, but there's no need to point a finger at something that's particularly bad or particularly good. So as a Draconian starseed, don't feel that you're odd, and some Draconians might feel like they don't want to be part of a family. If you're a Draconian starseed, you might feel like, I don't want to have a mum and dad. I wish they'd have just left me alone and I could have got on with my own life. And other members of the family might feel like you're being rude or you're not caring, but you just don't understand being in a human body, that you have to have this big family. You might just want to be like, oh, I don't understand the way the humans live and they have to be all together. I'd like to just be on my own, because in Draco, that's what would have happened. So you might struggle. And there's another thing. Do you feel like you're in a family that has been created? Because I feel like I'm in a family that's been created with half bloodline to merge the two entities together so that we get along, because of the wars that we've had on our own planets and the fact that Lyra was destroyed by the Reptilians. Think about this, what about if you're in a family where half your family is from a Reptilian bloodline and the other half is for a Lyran bloodline, which has been incarnated together, and that is for a purpose, to understand each other better and see it from each of your point of view. I feel like half of my family is Reptilian bloodline and half of my family is Lyra. The appearance of us is totally different. The attitude is totally different. And it's learning to work together that is part of my life journey and part of theirs. It's why you don't understand each other. And you can easily see it in your birth chart, because, like I said, if you've got a Lyran, if you're born human, you've left yourself little clues, if you're a starseed, as to why, certain placements of your astrology in certain places and why theirs are in other places. Are they totally opposite? Are they totally and utterly misunderstood by each other? Is that part of the test? Is it part of the map you've left yourself to find your origin? Good potentially that it is. Could it be that two starseeds, which are two souls that have had incarnations interplanetary, have incarnated into a family that was meant to be half and half, but the two parents are just human with the bloodline of a reptile and a Lyran, and the two children have got souls from externally or from other planetary souls that are incarnating, and that they see things differently to their parents because the parents are just human with the bloodline. So the bloodline is just a human that's always been a human, but if you go back far enough, their bloodline is reptilian. So in a way, we're all connected. So there's no good or bad. There is good and bad in everything, and it's the way that we learn from it and ascend to the next level of consciousness. A lot of starseeds from any origin will have some sort of like dietary, sometimes it can come out in maybe autism, or they'll have a difficulty with, they need gluten-free, or they will have a lactose intolerance. This is quite common. Sorry, my foot's going numb again, as it always does when I do these videos. So it's sort of like, you might come into this planet and have me and my sister have both got lactose intolerance, but our parents haven't. Does it mean that our parents are just humans with bloodline reptile, bloodline Lyran, and we're the same, but we're actually souls from other planets that have incarnated in order to make the two families or the two bloodlines merge together in harmony. Well, I that's the conclusion I've come to. But what do you think? I'd be interested to know what you think in the comments, and like, share and subscribe to me, and I'll be coming to you with different videos, and I'd love to hear what you'd like to hear next. And I'll see you in the next video.